Hey guys, it is 1 o'clock Central Time. Thank you for joining us today for episode 6 of Cerna Podcast Live. I feel like we've done so many more of these, but thank you guys very much for joining us. We do have a lot to cover on this webinar. I think we had it marked for 45 minutes, and we're going to do our best to stay within that time frame. But because of the amount of things that are happening in Madrid, because of the things we want to show you, and because of, I'm sure, the questions that you guys have, there's a chance we're going to go a little bit longer than necessary. If that's a problem for you guys, we will keep this recording available on our website as well as YouTube, and we'll definitely be emailing that out to everyone once we have that ready for you, if for some reason we go a little bit longer than you're able to stick around. But one thing I did want to point out, if we don't talk about what you wanted to talk about, or if we left something off that you note, that doesn't mean we don't think it's important in the new Madrid update. Essentially, we are trying to cover the information that we think is going to affect the most ServiceNow customers, but there is obviously so many features and so many new things coming out that are going to be relevant to your business. And if you have any questions about those, if we don't get to them, make sure to put those into the question panel, and we'll be happy to either answer them on this call if possible, or see if we can reach out to you and get you some additional information from our team. Again, so I am Tim Lee. I am the host of Cerna Podcast Live. I am again joined by my distinguished panel of ServiceNow experts, where we talk about all things ServiceNow. Returning for, I don't think we've even counted how many times, we've got Will Smith. Will, go ahead and tell us where are you from and what do you do for Cerna?
Yeah, so from Ohio, and I'm a technical consultant in the areas of ITOM, ITSM, HR, service portal. So kind of do wear a lot of different hats.
Yeah, fantastic. And yeah, Will has done a great job helping us do a lot of presentations for a lot of our ServiceNow consulting as well, and he loves helping teach some of the newer features that a lot of people may not be aware of. And joining us for the first time, Tommy Lamont. Tommy, can you let us know where you're from and what you do for Cerna?
Thanks, Tim. Yeah, I'm from North Carolina. I am a consultant with Cerna. I specialize in security and integrations, although before that, I kind of worked a little bit in other areas of the platform as well. Spent a lot of time in ITSM as a customer before coming over to the consulting world. So
great.
A little bit of everything.
Yeah, well, thank you for joining us on this podcast. If you are new to the podcast, just to give you a general idea of how things work, this is, for the most part, a panel discussion. We are going to be going through on this call a number of the new features, a number of improved features in the latest ServiceNow update. But in general, we are trying to keep it somewhat conversational. However, we are going to be doing a demonstration of a few of the newer items that we think are going to be useful for you to be taking a look at. So that's one reason why we like to do these as a video podcast format, is we're still going to be showing you and kind of leading you through how a lot of that works. Before we get started, I'm going to go ahead and throw out to the group kind of as a preliminary question. So guys, obviously we've gone through, we've taken a look at the notes, we've gone through Madrid ourselves. Having gone through all that, what do you think has stood out to you the most right now?
Yeah, so I saw kind of not quite as flashy as some of the other updates we're about to talk about, but there's a new feature called concurrent imports. And what that does is when you get data from a data source, as you're importing that, ServiceNow will actually let you basically chunk that import and run multiple concurrently. So you're going to get those imports a lot faster. And I've seen some custom solutions like this. And what's nice about this one is, since it's out of the box, they really took performance into account. You're not going to bring down your whole instance trying to run imports on every node. They lock the files properly, so you're not running into each other and overwriting what you just updated. So I think that's a pretty cool feature that I haven't heard too much about, but should be nice to have.
Yeah, Will, what about you?
One of the ones that I thought was really interesting was mobile catalogs in the service portal is native now. So people have done this in the past. I know our own Jeff Pierce has done this, but now it comes out of the box. And so ServiceNow has given us the ability to add multiple service catalogs inside of our service portals, which is really handy and really helpful.
Fantastic. Hey, I'm going to reiterate real quick. I'm getting some questions in right now. I do want to reemphasize, if you want to ask questions, please feel free to throw those in throughout the webinar. We'll be happy to get to those if possible. One question that we just got asked, are we going to be going into the mobile enhancements that are going to be introduced in Madrid? And that's a big yes. That's one of the things that we are most excited about. And we're going to be talking about that up front, and we're going to be doing a little bit of a demonstration on that a little bit later on as well, among other things. So just by way of setting the agenda at this point, we're going to start off by getting into what we think are some of the most exciting brand new features in Madrid. We're going to then jump over to what are some of the new and improved features, things that already existed in ServiceNow but are changed and work a little bit better at this point. And then we've set up a couple of demos for you guys where we're going to talk about the new agent workspace, which I believe was available before Madrid, but I don't think most people had actually started using it yet. So we're going to give you as much of a demonstration as we can right now. And then we're also going to be talking about the new mobile app development and how that's going to work for you guys and affect what you're doing in ServiceNow. So let's get started. Let's talk about what are the brand new features. So up front, I think we started with kind of a, I don't want to say it's a black sheep, but it's I don't think it's one of the ones that we've heard a lot of people talking about, but I'm personally excited about the coaching function, the new coaching feature coming out in ServiceNow. And then Will, you told me that someone internally had told you this was already existed. Is that correct?
Yeah, so somebody said that this was kind of a feature that has been around for a while that didn't get a lot of traction the first time. And so I think ServiceNow kind of realized the value of being able to, put coaching into the platform. And so they're bringing it back. They're re-releasing it, and I can definitely see how it can add a lot of value to, maybe a coaching process that you already have if you're in a call center or something like that.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is not so much an automated feature from what I understand. I mean, there are integrations that you can include with this, but the idea here is you're essentially taking, you're creating standards for what needs to be measured as far as performance in your company. You are identifying what is happening performance-wise, and you're applying those standards to them. And then you're creating coaching opportunities for you to follow up on. And the reason why I think this is important, the reason why I think this is exciting is, ServiceNow really is most useful as a system of action for you guys. It's really the idea that you're taking something, what doesn't seem like a technical process like coaching, and giving you a chance to really organize it all where you keep everything. And so have your managers, have your employees all in one place, still taking advantage of what ServiceNow does best, which is, allowing you to compile everything and get rid of spreadsheets and get rid of emails, and really start to take control over what kind of application you're using for coaching.
Yeah, Tim, I agree. I think,
Yeah.
A lot of people, ServiceNow maybe isn't their first system they've taken in incidents and tickets and things like that. If you think back, that's really what your goal was: get out of email, get out of spreadsheets. So, why not take advantage of that if you already have the tool, rather than, and what it really is. I know, Will, you said you really like this from some of your previous call center experience. I think say you have a service desk agent and they may not have handled something as best as they should have. You now can kind of assign something actionable to that person, and then make sure they get it completed, and then you'll even be able to report on the metrics of that, kind of how it's going afterwards. What can be improved. So it's nice to keep all that, rather than maybe you send an email to the person and just gets forgotten and nothing really happens there.
Well, it was paper and pencil in my day, Tommy.
So, I mean, we rank this as a low on the must-have scale. I don't think that anyone's going to really see this as the biggest life changer. But I'm surprised, Will, we had this a little bit high on the maintenance scale. And what reason do you have for saying that?
Sure. So the reason I kind of bumped it up on maintenance is just because it's one of those things that you kind of have to keep on top of, and create those opportunities and kind of create those coaching moments with the trainees.
Yeah.
And so,
Will, would you say it's
ongoing.
kind of more it's more administration maintenance rather than development, right? Just kind of keeping those opportunities up to date.
Sure. So it's more of a manual process essentially. And I think we did identify there was some virtual coaching availability, but I don't think I saw too much about that honestly. And that's probably something we'll yet to see more of. Moving on, I know that this is something that people are excited to talk about. Mobile app development. Will, can you give us kind of a breakdown just at a very high level? What's new and exciting right now in mobile app development?
Everything. So it's been completely overhauled from the ground up, and so ServiceNow, mobile app development is now available through Studio, right? So it's the Studio that you already use, you already love it, and they've brought mobile app dev into the Studio. So you don't have to go use some third-party tool or anything like that. They've also given you the no code approach. So you've got the no code, low code, pro code approach, but you can build a pretty decent mobile app with no coding whatsoever. And then obviously is the ServiceNow app itself for Google and for Android and iOS. And so it's now called ServiceNow Agent, and it supports incidents, it supports notifications, obviously, and approvals, and a couple of other things that we'll look at later.
Sure. Now, the no-code model, that's obviously why a lot of people are drawn to ServiceNow. It really allows you, I think the goal was to allow anybody to be able to make an application that's useful to them without really knowing how to script and code. But that said, we have our jobs because there are kind of limitations to the no code. Would you say that's still the case with mobile app development? And what do you think you could do if you actually got into sort of the back end code? What other bigger projects would you say you'd be able to take on in that situation? Or rather, what are the limitations? Oh no, is Will frozen? Okay.
Like he's frozen. I
Either
can
that
take
or
that some, I know.
my question broke him. Okay, Tommy, go ahead. Sorry about that.
Yeah, so I think Will has done a little bit more development on there than I have. Oh, I think he's back too. Will, can you hear us now?
Hi, I'm still here.
You
Okay.
froze for a second there. Tim was just asking kind of some opportunities if you're going to dig in a little more than the general no code development on the mobile app development, if you have any examples of what you thought I guess kind of cool use cases you could have
Yeah,
that are a bit more advanced.
I think some of the more advanced features are just adding, the layers of functionality, right? So you can get 4 screens deep, 5 screens deep into your app, and then just adding cool functions that allow people to do things that you can already do in the platform. Bringing it closer to a native platform experience rather than just kind of a simple mobile app.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, great. Since we have so much to work on or to talk about, we are going to revisit this in a little bit, so I don't want to spend too much time up front, digging in at the moment. But the other thing that was brand new in ServiceNow that I know we wanted to talk more about, and something we'll also be demoing a little bit later, is Agent Workspace. Tommy, do you want to kind of give us the rundown on why this is exciting and what to expect?
Yeah, so Agent Workspace, I know everyone's been hearing a lot about it for close to a year now, I think. So may not seem exactly brand new, but because it did exist in London, but it was limited availability. So you had to go out and kind of, I guess, apply to ServiceNow to get that. So not many people had used it. It's now in Madrid, full release. Everyone can get it. And they've actually kind of expanded the areas of the platform you can use it with. So we'll go into it a little more in the demo, but a couple of things I really liked about it. And actually, my big question when I had heard about it at first is, this looks very nice, but how does the customization compare to out of the box? I mean, we've all been working on ServiceNow for years now, and are pretty familiar with how you customize the UI. But this Agent Workspace is completely different. So actually, I played around a bit. There's even a guided setup for it, and it's very customizable. You can kind of change around what records you can create, you can pick different tables to create the records from, change the fields you see, you can recreate some UI policies. I mean, one thing is, since it is a different UI completely, if you are pretty customized, you're gonna have to do a little bit of legwork to kind of replicate what you have in your current incident form over in the workspace, just to make sure, all your custom fields and things are there. But if you're closer to out of the box, you can, I mean, it's pretty full featured with no configuration. And we'll show that in a bit here, as Tim said.
Yeah. And this is, I mean, looking at this chart, I mean, the mobile app development, we saw that the difficulty in implementation was a little bit higher. And I think, Will, we talked before about that's just because there's so much setup involved, right? Um, but for the agent workspace, I mean, because this is such a kind of a net new, almost like net new functionality, you should be able to implement this pretty quickly, maintain it pretty easily, and just kind of reap the benefits of it, right?
Yeah, and I really liked, as I said, there is a guided setup for it. I haven't always used those a ton, but I would recommend, even if you're not going to do all the configuration through there, it's a nice way for something new like this to get in and kind of see where all the configuration is and what's possible. So it'll walk you through the different areas, like adding additional tables you can create records on, adjusting some of the ribbons, what shows up there. So yeah, overall, not too bad to implement at all. And yeah, time benefit you might see rated pretty high, and we'll kind of go into that. You'll see that when we get to the demo. It really puts everything in one place instead of clicking around a bunch like you may have to in the native UI.
Yeah. So this is mostly going to affect your help desk, right? I mean, this isn't going to change the way a lot of either your end users are using ServiceNow, or it's not going to go into maybe some of the higher level management stuff. This is really
Yeah,
going to be, something finally for your help desk team to really take control of how they fulfill these, service requests.
yeah. So end users will still be Portal, so they won't really be too affected by the workspace. You can, out of the box, it's definitely structured with Service Desk in mind, but with some of the customizations, I think there are definitely use cases there for other areas of IT, and even security operations has their kind of own subsection of agent workspace that's a little more optimized for security analysts to quickly get to what they need to. So I think we definitely started out with a full featured for the service desk, but through customization, and I'm guessing future versions, we're going to see it really take over a bit more of the platform, maybe.
Yeah.
Having past experience in a customer service role, this is something I would have loved to have had. That way you're not managing bunches of tabs with tickets going on galore. So
Yeah, that was what was most interesting for me in hearing you guys talk about this and talking to other people, is because most of the people I talk to on a day-to-day basis aren't using ServiceNow on that level. And to hear you guys say, man, I remember being on the help desk. I remember what this is like. This is a game changer. This is huge.
it is.
Yeah, we're getting a lot of people letting us know that they agree with us on the back end, or on the questions here. Okay, so like I said, we're going to revisit a few of these at the end. Let's instead shift gears a little bit while we have some time and talk about some of the other features that are not new in Madrid, but that have improved or have made some really interesting enhancements. So Will, can you tell us, I know that you were one of the first people back in London to knock on my door and say, we need to be talking to people more about virtual agent. I really think this is something that people should be more aware of and maybe aren't utilizing to the best of their abilities. Can you tell me what is, first of all, maybe explain to people what virtual agent is in the first place, in case that's something that they didn't get started on with the last release. And then why are you excited about what's happening now in Madrid?
Yeah, so a virtual agent is the ability to add topics, bot conversations in a number of areas of the platform: HR, ITSM, customer service management, just to name a few. And so it's on the service portal, and then you can also get to it through the there's a web page, like a static web page you can go to. So you can link to it multiple ways, and it has native recognition. And so language processing, I'm sorry, I'm kind of tripping on my words here a little bit, but it has language processing, right? So if you type in, I want to take leave, it will suggest an HR request where you can submit a leave request. And so virtual agent is really a neat tool that kind of enables some of those, more tier 1 style requests and tickets to be taken off of your tier 1 agents, and really lets them, do more interesting projects and things that are maybe can build their skill set a little more. So, but with Madrid, with virtual agent in Madrid, we get a number of new features. They're going to be integrating with Facebook Workplace. And so, Facebook Workplace is kind of another third option. So we have Slack, we have Microsoft Teams, the current integrations, and so now they're going to be bringing Facebook Workplace. They've also added no-code topic authoring, and you're saying, what is that? Well, in the last release in London, if you wanted to do like a glide record lookup, you had to script it. And now they added the ability to just use the standard pickers that are all over the platform, and filters and lists and things like that. So you can really quickly kind of filter out some of your topics that you create. And the last option is they added an overview dashboard, right? So you can monitor your bot conversations and really work on training those bots to be better and to be smarter, and designing your topics and your conversations more appropriately. So really looking forward to Virtual Agent in Madrid.
So, and I know that when we were kind of getting together and discussing how we wanted to break down this information, there was some question about, is must-have and time benefit really that different? And I think that this is a perfect example of how it is. How, the idea that a virtual agent might seem, in the middle of the road in terms of a nice to have. But once you do have it, the time benefit could be pretty large, right?
Oh, totally agree. Yeah, I mean, just the ability to to kind of shoulder some of the load of those tier 1 tickets, like we talked about, from creating a problem to creating a change request, leave in HR, like I mentioned, or just getting a hold of somebody. So it really kind of helps take that load off of those tier 1 agents.
Mm-hmm.
One really cool thing with Madrid, I think that you mentioned, Will, was that the no-code topic authoring, because a lot of AI is a buzzword right now. Everyone wants it. Sometimes, it's kind of elevated beyond where we may be at right now. So, virtual agent, it takes some setup to get going. It's not a magical being where it's going to solve all your problems when people chat to it. So, making it easier to author those topics, which the topics are basically how the language is processed and then kind of takes a flow. You're going to be able to have more of those. And even, Will, as you said, you're freeing up your L1 agents. Maybe now you have a couple power users, they could even get on some of that, and based on, they're going to know the best what people are calling about to their service desk, and what could be useful in virtual agent.
Yeah. So, and I got a question about, is the agent workspace, does it require a subscription, or is it free with Madrid? I'm going to try to defer some of the licensing questions for now, just because I don't actually have a full list that I can definitively say. ServiceNow has actually said they're going to be getting us that list in mid-March. So you guys may have some questions about how this fits into a licensing model, and honestly, I wish I could give you more information right now as to what that's going to look like, but it's definitely something that you should be talking about with your ServiceNow representative, or however you get that information right now is still probably the avenue to do that. Let's talk about Flow Designer. I know that this comes up all the time, and not everyone knows a lot about it. So Tommy, can you tell us, what is exciting about Flow Designer, and what is it?
So,
can you give us a little idea for people that aren't using it right now?
Okay, yeah, it's a good place to start. So Flow Designer, not exactly new. We have it under here improved. I think it was released in Kingston initially. So what we've seen over the past couple releases is they've kind of enhanced it. And what it is, it's almost it's probably a future replacement for workflow. With the goal being a little bit easier to manage than workflow. Similar to the no-code virtual agent, this is kind of a no-code or low-code designer for your workflows or flows. That kind of, it's a whole different UI, and you have preset actions that you can then act on. And I said low code, you do have the ability to code some stuff. That's actually some of the changes they've had. I know when I played with it in Kingston, I felt a little restricted about what I could do. Like some of my use cases, I'd go to do it, and then it turned out a feature that was in workflow wasn't there. But what I've seen with Madrid is they've really added a lot of stuff that's giving it a lot more potential for replacing workflow, or even just augmenting. One cool thing in Madrid is you can actually call a workflow from a flow designer now. So, if you have most of your stuff done in a workflow already, and you maybe want to trigger that differently or have a different, kind of pre-action, you build a flow designer and then call that. Go ahead,
When do you
Tim.
do that? When do you decide? How do you decide what to do in Flow Designer and how to do in the legacy workflow system?
So somebody was joking with me the other day. I think a good use case for what Tommy just mentioned of, keeping your existing workflow is maybe like an onboarding workflow, right? That probably has many, many steps or has a couple of subflows in it, right? If you've got really complex workflows, you can set up a flow designer and, that'll be your trigger, but then that, will just call out to that existing workflow and start the workflow process. But for some of your more streamlined workflows that are, maybe not as complex, you definitely want to take a look at Flow Designer and moving over to using it. It's really great, and I've been playing with it, and I'm really happy with it.
So we had a question come in, the ability to call legacy workflows from Flow Designer. How legacy, quote unquote, in the question, how legacy does that cover?
I'm pretty sure it's all workflows. You can just call a workflow. So any active workflow that you have out there, I'm pretty sure it can be called.
So you don't think there's any kind of limitation that you've seen so far from using it?
Not that I've seen, no.
Okay. Hey, if that person who asked that question has a follow-up to that, definitely feel free to let us know. All right, so let's move on. We're kind of tying in SecOps VR, which means vulnerability response. It's not a cool new 3D experience for managing your security operations, but we're tying in VR and SIR a little bit. I know that Tommy, you were most excited about vulnerability response, and can you kind of give us an idea as to what's new and exciting with SecOps vulnerability?
Yeah, so as Tim said, maybe not as flashy as a mobile app, but there are some good improvements. Definitely building upon what they've already had. They added a lot with some out-of-the-box dashboards. I don't know if you're using it, you've probably seen the old vulnerability overview dashboard, which really is just a series of reports that sat there on your homepage. They've converted that now to a real true dashboard, so you can it's much more dynamic. You can get a lot more information. They also give now a bunch of they're giving us a lot more performance analytics widgets or performance analytics kind of pre-built reports that you can use. So both of those kind of go with, like, I think, making it easier to implement. You'll notice we have it pretty low on the difficulty to implement. Usually a vulnerability process is fairly standardized. We integrate your third-party tool, you get your vulnerabilities in there, and then work to resolve them. So having the big customization, if you need it, or really where ServiceNow is a big advantage, is getting all that data and doing something with it, because you have hundreds of thousands of vulnerabilities. You need to do something. So with the new reports, you can get a better overview of your full health. There's a couple more. We already had like roll-up calculators in previous versions. They've added some more some enhancements to that. So like risk scores take a couple more factors into account now when rolling up. There's now assignment group rules, which kind of breaks out the calculating an assignment group out away from the filter groups or calculators, kind of into their own module, so you can work with that a little nicer. One really random thing I noticed while I was playing with it, if you're building a manual vulnerability group now, there's a cool little preview button that'll kind of, you can preview your conditions as you're building them, which I didn't see that mentioned in release notes anywhere, but it seemed cool to me, because you set up your conditions, you want to know, like, did I do something wrong? Am I going to see 100,000 or 2 as a result of this? So nice.
Yeah, I saw you call that out to the team this morning. I thought that was funny. What's that, Will?
I said it sounds really helpful.
No, yeah, and I think that just sort of an extra note on my end is I'm really surprised at how many companies don't have a solution like ServiceNow, let alone that they aren't using ServiceNow for managing their vulnerability response. I think that we still see a lot of companies, even if you're not doing everything manually, even if you have a number of other tools that you're using for security operations, if you're not managing them with a tool like ServiceNow, I mean, I guess it surprises me, and it's kind of scary when we think about how many companies are kind of having these security issues at the moment. Tommy, what is your thought right now in terms of, I know you have the must-have pretty high for this, but the time benefit pretty high. I mean, can you kind of explain why you think the benefit of this is really as high as it is?
Yeah, so there's the obvious benefit of you need to do something about your vulnerabilities. We've all seen data breaches at large companies, it's no good. It costs everyone money and time. You're, making your customers not very happy if their personal information's out there in the open and wild. So time benefit really, because like I said, you might have hundreds of thousands of vulnerabilities. And in your vulnerability scanner tool, they're there. You might be swivel chairing it some into ServiceNow to take some actions. You might be working them there. A lot of people are just on spreadsheets still. So what you can really do with vulnerability is use the groups. And I'm not going to go too far into this. We do actually have a demo where I talk a little bit more about some of the benefits and how the groups are built and what you can do with them. But the main point is you group your vulnerabilities together and basically rate them on risk. So you can really address, know which ones you can address at the same time, and then know which ones you should address first, which are most risky to your organization.
Yeah.
And there's, they even with Madrid, they keep adding ways to do that better. And I guess they say, I think the point of it is to get the right information in front of the right people as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
Really good.
And I want to call out, someone had asked us to explain our acronyms a little bit better, and I do apologize if I didn't do that better up front. I think we mentioned that VR stood for vulnerability response. So it's essentially, there are a number of tools that people have for monitoring their securities vulnerabilities. And so ServiceNow has a suite of tools, and one of them is to help with that. And then SIR, which we'll get into right now, is Tommy, you do a better job of explaining that. Why don't you go ahead and just kind of define what security incident response is and what that means, and kind of why you went in this direction with your rankings.
Yeah, so security incident response, not a ton of changes in Madrid. I'll start out with there were a lot of changes in London, so I feel like vulnerability kind of got.
Give it a quick overview first.
Yeah, so security incidents, it's kind of vulnerabilities preventing something from happening. You solve that vulnerability before it's been exploited. Security incident is kind of the other end of that. You've had something happen. You had a data breach. What do we do now, and how do we track that? So security incident enables you to track all those activities and then assign them. And actually, I'll transition there into some of the new features. There's, as I mentioned earlier, an analyst workspace, security analyst workspace, and it's a little more optimized for the security analyst versus service desk agent. Has things like, one of the new cool things is run books. So you can actually define, if this security incident happens, what 10 things need to be done, and you can go through and your analyst can check those off if maybe they're a little less experienced and don't know off the top of their head. And it also gives that kind of accountability, you're saying, if this happens, we do these things, and that's how it's resolved.
That's really helpful in like a high pressure situation too, because if you have, something happen, you get a DDoS attack and you've got all your servers going down, things can get a little crazy, and you could forget who to call and what steps you need to take. So it's really easy to look at a quick checklist of, do 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, and that's what's cool. That's what's cool in Madrid also. I mean, you just touched on that, but I want to spell it out a little bit more. The agent workspace that we were so excited for at the top isn't just for the ITSM levels of service management, right? I mean, it's any responders are going to most likely be able to configure their own type of workspace, and so security is definitely included in that. So that's definitely one of the things that I think is worth bringing up.
Yeah, last point I wanted to just give on security incident. One of the reasons there weren't a bunch of updates is that what ServiceNow has done is actually moved it out to be a store app. They're starting to distribute some of their applications through the store. So security incident now can actually receive updates independent of your version updates. So you'll see probably some more frequent updates there. And also, if you're upgrading to Madrid, you might not need to upgrade security incident yet. Maybe your security team's not ready. It's pretty nice to give that kind of independent upgradability.
Yeah. Okay, well, great. Well, let's move on to our last point before we get into a couple of the demo items that we wanted to touch on. But Will, can you tell us, right now, Service Portal, that's obviously made a big splash, a number of releases ago, but it sounds like there are some new enhancements in Service Portal that are pretty exciting in Madrid.
Yeah, one of the new ones is the ability to support multiple service catalogs, and so we've built this solution, as a custom solution, but the ability to now natively out of the box, support your service catalog, your technical catalog, maybe even your hardware catalog through your service portal will really help our customers to make sure they get that full breadth of coverage.
Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, if you don't already have, a good service portal process in place, now Madrid's a really good time for you to get started with that. Can you tell me about, we just kind of put in there new cloning options, but can you give us an example of what that means? When would someone want to utilize the new cloning options in the service portal application?
Yeah, so I can take that one. So you mentioned cloning, right, Tim? Sorry.
Yeah, cloning.
Going out there for a second.
Did I?
So the request, no, I did. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
So request cloning, yeah. So one thing I kind of hear a lot, when I'm building service catalogs for people in the past, they're kind of like, well, I need to make this request, for application access for this one person, but the rest of my team needs the access too. So you're saying I've got to go in and submit this request 10 times. It's the same thing. So cloning is really cool. What it does is when you go to check out with your requests, you have an option. You do have to enable it, and it can be restricted by role if you don't want everyone able to do this. But you can basically go in and say, clone this request for, Will and Tim and Tommy. And then when you submit that, you're going to have not just the one request, but 3 requests for each of those people individually. So it's going to save a ton of time when submitting requests if you are requesting the same thing for multiple people.
It sounds really handy for all the managers out there with new teams and onboarding procedures.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. If you're gearing up your team or anything, you're gonna probably be submitting the same requests pretty often.
Okay. Well, we have a little bit of time left. I want to make sure we have some time for us to get into a few of these demos that we wanted to talk about. First one that I know we wanted to touch on was going to be Agent Workspace. And so what I'm going to do right now is I'm just going to hand it over to you, Tommy. And we're going to actually go ahead and take a look and see, what does Agent Workspace look like, and kind of run us through some of the features.
All right. So you should be seeing the Agent Workspace now. Are you both?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is kind of just the intro page. It says hello. Has a couple tips here on what we're about to do. But really, you come in here, you can hit plus, and for this scenario, let's just say I'm a service desk agent again, because I think they've really built it out pretty robust for that role. Come in here, open up something new, and this is actually something outside of this workspace. Actually, it's called interactions, which as Tim said, there's tons of stuff to talk about in Madrid, but so won't go too far into this. But this basically is a new call replacement, which I think maybe has kind of been needed for a bit. But rather than a new call, you now have what's called an interaction. So, say
and to
I'm getting,
reemphasize, just in case, sorry to interrupt you, just in case people, have not really been initiated into this. This is again for the help desk, for the responders to these incidents. This is really the new way for them to hop in and attack these items. Correct?
Yeah. Thanks for clarifying. So yeah, if I'm on here, I might live in ServiceNow all the time, clicking around as many service desk agents do. So I come in here, you get a call. So we can say we got a phone call. Open for, we'll say it's Will Smith is calling. Need a short description. Actually, let's not say Will is calling. Let's do someone else. To Able Tutor. I know the architect. He's always breaking his monitor. So create this ticket for him. Create a new incident. So what you can see now, and this is cool, because native UI, you hit that UI action, then you're kicked out to another screen. You hit back, you might not get back to where you're expecting. But no, here it opens a new little tab within the workspace, and I can go back to this interaction if I need to. But we're over here, we're at the incident. We can fill out the rest of our data. Of course, based on customizations, or even if you have agent intelligence, I don't have that enabled here. By dev instance, you might have more of these filled out right away. So let's say email doesn't make sense.
So for those technical support agents, I mean, I could definitely see you taking this, just making it full screen, throwing it on a separate monitor, and just working your whole day out of this tool, right? I mean, you could just live in this thing.
Yeah, definitely. 'Cause yeah, you can see that's got my incident created. I've got all my related lists up here in a bit nicer format. It's full-fledged incident form here. We have activity. You can post your notes or a solution. So, client probably wouldn't be happy with such a generic response, but anyway, so we've got our incident, and then again, let me just show how we can come back here. And if we need to do more, say Abel, his monitor's broken, and oh yeah, I need a new iPad. So you can come in here and create a request. This is kind of where this is customizable. You can add some more options here. So
Okay.
I'm going to do a request in this case.
One thing I want to call out, these multiple tabs that you have opening up, I remember that was something that a lot of people were really kind of drooling over, because the alternative was to kind of jump back and forth either with your own browser tabs or to just close the whole page entirely and go to a completely different page.
Yeah, and one thing that's cool is because you would have to either jump back and forth with your browser tabs or anything, you really noticed you were going to different applications within ServiceNow. I would have had to click incident, and then I'd have to click over to request. But here you're kind of living in this one thing. You can see there's actually 2 series of tabs. So we've got our interaction up here, just the parent, and then everything I've done with that is here. So it pulls your whole, everything together. Just so you can keep track of what you're doing, hop back and forth, order your iPad.
It also sounds dangerous, because I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people with 16 parent tabs and 16 child tabs. And
oh yeah.
That's a level of math I can't even calculate.
Yeah, I know. I have enough tabs in my browser normally now. We'll add another layer, but yeah, it'll be nice, because I know when you do that trick where you kind of open ServiceNow in a new tab, and it's frustrating. If you hit submit on the form, you probably notice, oh, but you were in this other tab doing something. You're going back to a form you didn't think you were. So this kind of gets rid of that whole issue. Yeah, you can see here I've got my request submitted. Again, you can up here see related tasks. We've got our incident request. We got our interaction there. Yeah, we have one thing I forgot to mention with incident over here. This is kind of our contextual search area. It's now branded as Agent Assist. Contextual search still exists in the native UI, but if you ask me, I think this seems like it's going to replace that eventually. Similarity, or it's pretty similar. You got your knowledge articles, catalog items. Yeah, you can really do everything right in this one space. It's pretty nice. So yeah, I could go on for a while about this, but I know we're on a time crunch. So
yeah, well, this is great. And everyone, if you have more questions about this, throw them in right now, and we'll see if we can kind of add a little bit of time to the end of the podcast and take that on, or maybe we can set up a demonstration with you and talk about it a little bit more one-on-one. But okay, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give Will a presenter so we can talk about the mobile app development. But thank you, Tommy. That was awesome.
All right, so you guys should be seeing, this is my phone. You see my phone?
Yeah, we see your phone.
Yeah. All right, sweet. So this is the new ServiceNow Agent app. This is the home screen that you launch into, and so you can see you've got applications here. And just to make it easier on you guys, I'm going to turn this thing sideways just to make it a little bigger, so everybody can kind of see what's going on here. So this is your typical portrait interface. So if I switch it, it's going to rearrange there, and you go from tiles to a nice list. So just to kind of orient you here, you've got tabs at the bottom. So we're on home in the bottom left with a little house. And then I've got some notifications here. So it looks like, I'm being asked to approve something. So there was an incident that was commented. I'm going to tap on it. Oh, it looks like Abel broke his monitor again. And so Tommy submitted that incident for Able Tutor. And then you can also see that if we go back here, we're going to tap back, and then there's an approval request. So I'm going to tap into that approval request. And what is it Abel's looking for? Oh, it's $1,200. If I tap related, it should take me into the requested item. Okay, so there's the iPad Pro. So I can either, when we tap on that, I get a couple of options. Oh, no, it's not opening for me. So you can approve and reject items from the approvals section here. Okay. Oh, it's in the approval, sorry, not in notifications. So I'm going to go back home, and then let's go look at that approval. So here we've got some pending approvals. There's the approval. That's what I'm looking for. So if I tap up here, I can approve it or I can reject it straight from the app. I can also swipe right and do reject or approve. All right, and then we've also got incidents. So out of the box, this is the out of the box platform, and you can see you've got folders, right? So let's orient ourselves with what we're looking at here. So we've got folders, which is the My Incidents and the Group Incidents there on the left, and then we have applets, which are the tiles, and those applets are all the tiles there, and you can create those. Those are really easy to create. You can have all different kinds. You can do things like lists. You can do a map, URLs, calendars, employee directories, all kinds of fun stuff. And so I'm going to tap on active incidents here. And you can see it takes a second to load, but now that it loads, I've got all of my active incidents. There's the one for Able. I'm just going to add a comment. So I swipe right to add a, and all these actions are customizable, right? So I can reassign it, I can resolve it. So I'm going to add a quick comment here, and I'm going to say met with Able, and excuse any typos here. This is live. Fixed monitor. Submit. And just like that, there we go. The incident was updated. So this is great for, the field service agents, things like that, or just anybody if you're in a meeting and you need to look at an incident or look at an approval that's yours. So then you've got grouped incidents, and that just groups, incidents by different types. So let's look at unassigned by group. So you can see SN admins has 2 incidents unassigned. So that's out of the box options. Let's dig into a little bit of things that I customized. And I mean, this is really easy. I did this over a weekend. So I've got my ITSM app here. I'm going to tap into it. And one of the nice things you can add they're called parameters. So when you add a parameter, you configure them, and it filters the view to only show you the relevant data according to the parameter. So we talked about applets before, and applets combine with data items. So kind of think of data items like data sets on a table, right? So it's the incident, it's the user table, things like that. So you link up data items and those link to applets. But with parameters, what they allow you to do is when I tap on this incidents by priority, it's forcing me to select a priority before it will even show me incidents. So I tapped high, and then I tap search, and then now it will only show me the high incidents, right? And then obviously, just like the prior app, you can filter. Let's go back, and we're going to look at open incidents. And again, I added some custom actions here. I added the add comments one, and then I also added a quick resolve one. I'm going to tap into this, and again, this is all configurable, what fields you want to show up. And then there's also the activity stream down at the bottom. So it looks just like your activity stream. Let me try another one here. This was working previously. All right. I will make sure I show you guys that real quick. So we also have a critical incident map. This one's kind of fun because it gives you that map view of where things are. And so you might want to avert your eyes for a second. This does kind of, get a little crazy. It scrolls around. So this incident that we're looking at is in Salem, Oregon. And so we're going to go to Washington, D.C. and look at this incident. Whoops, wrong tab. Nope, didn't work. There we go. All right, so it just shows me the location for the incident. So really kind of fun, kind of cool way to figure out where you're going. But it's also really functional and really handy. because I can push the directions button down here in the top, or I'm sorry, bottom right, that little triangle icon, or not triangle, what is that? That's a square on its side. And I can get directions, right?
Mhm.
So using the location, I can get directions. I can also call the person, really handy. And then you've got my active incidents. You can link out to knowledge. You can link to a specific knowledge base. You can see I'm linking out to this article on how to configure. So maybe like a helpful knowledge base. You can even make external links. So links out to websites, things like that. So that is the power of the new mobile app. It's developed using Studio, so it's a lot of fun. Get out there and play with it, and have fun with it.
So I think some of the things that people have been talking about with the mobile app development is, first of all, that I mean, is the development easier than it was on the old version?
I would say yes. The development is a lot easier because again, it's in Studio, right? So it's already
Okay.
a tool that you're using, and I mean the once you understand kind of the hierarchy of how things work from the applications to the applets, the data items, and the functions, once you get that concept, then it's real simple to just build things out.
Mhm.
And editing things is kind of that no code option, right? We're not talking about modifying script includes. If I want to change the name of this app, I just pull it up, modify the properties, and then it's done. So it's a
Now,
joy to code in.
one of the things that is kind of a pet peeve of mine is when I'm using an app and I can tell that this app was meant to be an iPhone app.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't quite make it unique enough on Android. And we did get a question as well. Are there any major differences you see between the Android and iPhone app versions of what you can do?
Great question. Unfortunately, I don't have any Android devices, so I wasn't able to test Android.
Tommy,
Yeah,
you're an
so
Android, aren't you?
yeah,
Not
Will
you
definitely
personally,
dug
but
in. Yeah, Will has dug into it a bit more than I have. But yeah, I got the app on my Android, and it looks pretty similar. So far, I haven't seen any major limitations. I haven't
yeah,
on my Android. I haven't dug into it enough to give you a list of differences,
sure.
but nothing. It's not like you're going into the app and you're like, oh, this doesn't swipe or nothing like that. And kind of on that same page, I kind of always felt like with the old app, they tried to do too much, take like a little bit of the desktop experience and put it in mobile, and kind of like it's never smooth. I never found myself using it really ever. And I think especially with the development and like as Will is showing here, some of the customization you can do, you can really target it for what you want to use it for, which is pretty cool, and it gives it a better experience overall.
Okay. Well, that's most of our time. We went a little bit over as promised, but I do want to get to a few other questions. And if you guys have any questions that we didn't get to, now is a great time to throw those at us as much as possible, as we'll try to cover as much as we can. One question that we did get, are there any updates about the UI potentially breaking, or, updates to common things that we need to know about? I think that one of the concerns that I've heard people say is, I remember in Helsinki when people were making the transition to that, because HR was a scoped application, they didn't realize that they were going to have to go back and rebuild their whole HR application from scratch, because the move from a non-scoped application to a scoped application was going to be an unforeseen problem for them. Is there anything like that that people need to be aware of for Madrid?
So I think, I mean, what I've seen largely so far, nothing that huge, nothing where you're gonna upgrade and you're like, oh, my instant it's broken now. The UI is pretty good. Nothing major breaking. Of course, anytime you're customized, you got to be thorough with your testing. You got to make sure your customizations still work in the new instance. Obviously, Agent Workspace, huge UI change, but it's kind of net new. It's not trying to adapt what you have, so you can go build on that. And actually, Tim, you reminded me of one thing I wanted to mention about security incident. Your HR comment made me think of that. Not quite as big, but for security incident, they added the ability to have multiple instances of like integrations. So you can integrate, if you're a college campus that, you might have separate IT departments. They have different, they have two instances of a security incident application. You can actually integrate both of those now out of box. And the reason I mention that is the configuration is a bit different. So when you upgrade, some things change, but ServiceNow even they give you a fix script now that's going to do all that for you. So when you upgrade, you just run that fix script. And I think that's only from Jakarta or Kingston. That might not be in London. But when you do that upgrade, you run the fix script and it takes care of it for you. So I think with the newer versions, the past couple upgrades, it seems like ServiceNow has done a better job at, either calling those things out or giving you the tools to resolve your issues more easily on your upgrade. So you're not like surprised out of left field with everything being broken and no idea how to fix it.
It's an extremely stable release.
Yes. Yeah, I noticed.
So I think that's the big takeaway, right? I mean, it really depends on how you've configured or how you've customized your system. And I think that if you're heavily customized, if you've done a lot of that, there's really no guarantee that if you flip the switch on the next, I speak glib about how easy it is to move on to the next. You just flip the switch, right? About churning on the next update. And that's a big problem that we hear a lot of customers talk about is, they've done so much customization in ServiceNow that they don't really know what's going to break when they do an upgrade. They don't always know how to make changes or go back to box, which again, I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't tell you that's something that we do help a lot of customers out with. If you guys have questions about how much customization you've done in ServiceNow and want to talk to us about that, there's our information is on the screen there. Another question I wanted to make sure we get to, someone had asked about how their automated test scripts, and this is a genuine question, guys. I know that it correlates with a product that we sell, but this was something that someone asked us, that their automated test scripts do fail when they upgrade to another system in ServiceNow, and they're wondering if that's going to happen in Madrid. And that is actually something that does happen. That it's almost the same as the customizations that you do. That if you're going to have a lot of test scripts that you're maintaining on your own, that when you make that upgrade to Madrid, there's really no guarantee that those scripts and those tests are going to be future-proof. But there are, again, wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't say that is something that we do actually, is we have an automated testing platform called Capio, where we have installed our own kind of API that we're maintaining for you guys. So every time that you do an upgrade, every time you do a customization, you have to make sure that you upgrade the back end, that you maintain all of that. And that's something that we actually handle for you on our side, at least as far as it goes for ServiceNow upgrades. So when you go to Madrid or New York, or I don't know what they're going to do for O yet, I haven't heard yet, or Zurich, the idea is that if you're doing the automated testing with Capio, that you're able to maintain that. Another question, and Tommy, I'm going to throw this one right to you. Has there been any AI in ServiceNow in Madrid that has expanded to other features of the platform?
Yeah, so thanks for throwing that to me, because I think, as I said before a little, there's a lot of AI, like chatbot, like this magic thing. The term gets thrown around a lot. There's very specific areas of the tool it's used in. So you already had virtual agent. You had agent intelligence to assist with some of your assignments. One cool one that I found it in the release notes and haven't seen much about. You can now, there's something called alert similarity, which basically uses AI, more specifically, to not use that bucket term. It uses natural language processing and machine learning to interpret your past alerts and events. So in event management, you can actually, if you're someone manually working this alert, you get a related list. You can see alerts that were similar, and it uses that natural language processing to determine that. So it's a little bit more than just a fixed condition. So you can see that, you can resolve that quicker because you saw what happened last time an alert like this happened, even if it wasn't exactly the same. And then beyond that, you can start to automate off of that. If you have this ability to link these together, you can automate some of your responses. So I think that's pretty cool that they're really expanding where they're using some of that machine learning out from just the agent intelligence and virtual agent. Always get those words mixed up.
That's really handy. I mean, I know those events are can be a big problem when they come in on because they come in such large numbers, right? So dealing with them through a bot or through an AI solution is definitely gonna help.
Yeah.
What other questions do we have, Tim?
I'm looking through because we got a lot of questions from people before. That's what the papers I'm looking at down here are. When they had registered, we asked for some questions, and a lot of great questions came in through there. I'm just trying to take a look and see if there's any other ones, because I know we're pretty low on time. But the last one I'll ask you guys, and this will be our final question. Any other questions you guys have, feel free to email us, or we'll see if we can, touch base with you afterward. Has there been any changes to the walk-up experience? And I thought that was worth pointing out, because I heard you guys mention that a little bit earlier. What's your take on, with the changes in Madrid, how that's going to affect that area?
Yeah, that's a good one. I actually should have mentioned that in Agent Workspace, because it goes really hand in hand. I've always been a big fan of the walk-up experience. I think it's really cool for, maybe use a university example again, where you have a walk-up help desk. You can people can go to a kiosk, get queued up, see where they are in line. One new thing in Madrid is appointment scheduling. So you think of that like Genius Bar model that Apple uses. You can schedule your appointment with the service desk or with an L2 agent ahead of time. And then the part that I really like is, I always thought it was really flashy on the end user end walk-up experience, but then you went and the service desk agent, you were just looking at a table, and that was it. It really didn't seem to match up. So now there is a workspace. You can do that right in the agent workspace, manage those walk-up experiences. I feel like it kind of closes the gap on new, flashier UI and experience.
Well, and plus, when you're handling the volume of walk-ups, right? I mean, it's definitely easier. Just like the incident, working an incident as a service desk person, it's easy to handle that volume when you're working in something like Agent Workspace.
Yeah, and it makes it easier to work like two at once.
Yep.
If you like with the old, we were just talking about, if you open a new tab and then the table interface, you might have a bit of a hard time managing going back to where you were before. So now you can actually have your two tabs in the workspace open, and kind of, if you're helping one person while someone's doing something else, you can switch back and forth. It's really nice.
Yeah.
That's great.
All right, guys. I'm going to wrap it up. Any final thoughts you guys have? What's your one takeaway? What's the big thing you're excited about for Madrid?
Mobile development. So looking to, just, get the word out on the new mobile experience that's available.
Mm-hmm. Tommy, is it Agent Workspace for you?
Yeah. Big surprise, right? Guess there's a reason we picked those two. But yeah, Agent Workspace, it's pretty awesome. Really changes the way people can use ServiceNow.
Yeah. All right. Well, awesome. Well, again, everyone, thank you all for joining. We're very excited about the response that we got from everyone on this, and we hope that you guys enjoyed it. If you have any questions, again, obviously feel free to visit us at cernasolutions.com. If you want to see some of our other podcasts, you can see those on our blog, or you can also go to YouTube and look up Cerna Solutions there. We've got a number of podcasts and webinars out there that you guys can take a look at. If you have any questions, go to, you can email us at info@cernasolutions.com. Let us know if there's anything we can help you out with, and we'd love to talk to you more about your next project and see how we can partner with you about, getting you connected with our experts and seeing how we can help you out. But again, Will, as always, thank you. Tommy, thanks for joining us for the first time. Everyone else, thanks for joining, and hope you guys have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Have a good one.